we
Yeah.
got
So which that'll definitely work too.
we
Cool.
got that going. So yeah.
Perfect. All right. Yeah. If you want to just jump right into it, I can do.
Hmm.
I usually do like a pre-recorded intro. So I mean, we can just jump right into it if you want.
Yeah, let's do it.
Sweet. All right. We're on the air. I'm here with Jason Stephenson. Jason, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, you're most welcome, Evan. Thanks for having me here today.
Yeah, such a pleasure. And, you know, I wanted to start by asking sort of, you have one of the largest meditative platforms I found on the internet. On YouTube, you have almost 2 million subscribers. How did you begin your journey like into meditation and sort of find your calling,
Yeah.
to be doing the work that you're doing and helping so many people?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Sometimes I have to nudge myself to really think about all of this. But look, that's kind of a two-pronged approach there, because meditation, I sort of dabbled in over the years. Since probably in my 20s, when I was going to a counselor for some difficult times in my life. And my counselor suggested way back then, have you ever tried meditation? Oh, I went to a lesson, when I was younger, but yeah, no, not really. And she said, well, that will help you greatly. But then I kind of let it go for a long time.
Hmm.
Went back into it again when I attended a Buddhist monastic retreat. And that was probably in my 30s. That was probably a pivotal point where it was life-changing for me, really life-changing. But then I stopped again and just did my own thing. I was doing lots of jobs, and the YouTube aspect of it, of the whole thing growing and me actually delivering meditations to others, was almost by mistake, although there's no mistakes, right?
Right.
There's no mistakes, but it was just, I had a YouTube channel, and I had set up a website to sell relaxation type tracks and music and that. But I didn't think it was going to go big in any way, shape, or form. And a friend said to me, start a YouTube channel, because YouTube channels are really good to help promote your website. Well, as it turned out, he was right. And in fact, the YouTube channel took off in a much, much bigger way. And so, yeah, here I am now, 7 or 8 years later, and it's my life now. Like, it's what I dedicate and it is my calling, what I've discovered.
Mhm.
And I really had no idea that this was going to be my calling, but now I know as I'm doing it, it feels right. It feels what I'm here for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing, and the work that you do is amazing. So,
Thank you.
what was it sort of when you went on like that Buddhist retreat? What was
Yeah.
it that you found so life-changing about meditation? Because, it took me a while to like I dabbled with it for a little bit, like here and there. But once sort of getting into that regular practice and really taking taking it seriously is when I've started to see the life-changing benefits myself. But what was it that you found was so
Mm,
different about you know that sort of approach to how you were living before?
mm, mm. Well, I was still in my 30s. I was kind of going off the rails with lots of things. I was taking still drugs and alcohol and et cetera, et cetera. My life was pretty chaotic, one could say. And for some reason, when I saw there was a temple, the largest temple in the Southern Hemisphere, which was being built near my hometown, like 15 minutes drive. And so we'd seen it get built for years and years and years. And I thought, I must go there one day. I'd love to see that. And it was just opening. And so I signed up to go there to the 10-day monastic retreat, strict monastic conditions. You even got your hair shaved, wear the robes, 2 meals a
Mm.
day, complete silence. Now, I remember when I first signed up for that, they said to me, Jason, have you attended retreats before? And I said, no. And they said, well, we would suggest, rather than jump into a 10-day one, we would suggest do a 2-day retreat, because once you start this one, you cannot leave. And I thought, this sounds interesting. I said, no, I want to stick to this one. So I said, no, I'm in for this one. They said, okay, then. Well, the first 3 days of silence and mindfulness brought up so much stuff. Okay. There's no running from it when it starts to come up. And so the
Mhm.
first 3 days of this meditation and mindfulness brought up a lot of anger for me, of stuff that I had not worked through. And I'd been obviously just been pushing it down, and obliterating myself with drugs and alcohol, covering it all up. And of course, there's nothing I could do here except see it and feel it.
Right.
And I wanted to leave. I wanted to leave big time. I wanted to get out of that retreat. It was a nightmare. And what made it worse for me and brought up even more anger was the fact that there was a guy that was standing next to me in the mornings. And it was almost like I began to feel comfortable that knowing that one guy there, even though we couldn't talk, we couldn't do anything, he was like just one guy there that was there every morning. And then he left.
Mm.
And it was like my anger could be justified now. Why has he left when we weren't meant to leave? So I was,
Mm.
reflecting it all on this poor guy that had gone. And then for some reason though, I kept going. And it wasn't until about the fifth day when things started to settle. And I mean, really settle. I began to capture moments I began to understand what it was all about, and especially the the moments of just being. I can still remember one of those first moments. We were waiting at 5 a.m. in the morning. It was freezing cold in the middle of winter. We were at the top of the temple. Sun was beginning to come up, and we were standing in line waiting to go into the temple. And I just remember just standing there freezing, and the sun comes up. And I remember it was the first time in such a long, long time that I was truly, truly present, just, just being. And just these waves of peace just began to wash over me so much. I just felt like crying. I was just so at peace and so happy. And
Right.
it was the first time in such a long time. And then that was the beginning of it all. That was the beginning, day after day. Then it got more magical and more magical. And by the time I left, it was really life changing. I was working in the disability field, and there was always chaos around me at work, with people yelling and screaming, and something changed, and it was I saw it from a different place. I wasn't involved in it. I saw it, and I went with a calm presence, and I dealt with them all differently. And they
Right.
were like, I remember them just looking at me, and they just come up to me and they just like, Jason, like, what's going on with you? Like, you're so, I just said, I don't know. I just said, I feel good. I can still remember those days. They were all
Right.
just sort of all over me. It was like they wanted a piece of me then. It was like, oh my God, Jason, yeah.
Right. They
It was
noticed
great.
that definite sort of switch in your energy and that change.
Yes, yes.
Right. And
So,
I,
yeah.
and I was going to say, like, that's sort of, I think once you sort of reach that point, you have that, like, it's almost like a mystical experience, if you will, of like sort of that true presence, that true being. That's like it's like what you always sort of strive to go back to when you're,
Oh,
meditating. And it's
oh
just like,
my. Yeah.
it's and there's nothing more, I would say, more fulfilling than that. And there's nothing more, uh, like, that's just being like present in yourself, present in your being. And, you know, uh, would you say that maybe a reason people might be hesitant to like fully commit to that meditation is sort of maybe that fear of lurking through conditioning, and sort of not necessarily like, because you said those first 3 or 4 days is almost sort of a tough, miserable experience where you had to sort of go through the layers and layers. And, the older you get, the more layers that keep kind of piling up. So, I mean, it was that sort of we tend to sort of really externalize our whole experience and externalize pretty much our whole ways of life. And when you sort of go inward, you have to really look at that conditioning. Is that maybe why meditation is a scary process for a lot of people?
I think so, and possibly also too. One of the biggest things I always hear is people saying to me, I've tried meditation, and they'll do it once or twice,
Mhm.
and they say, but I just couldn't silence my thoughts. Just my mind was just going, going, going. So I think people are also after that really quick fix and they think that meditation, they're supposed to just sit there and breathe, and all of a sudden all their thoughts just disappear.
Right.
And that's what we see so much of, in mainstream and stuff. Oh, meditation, you just sit there and it gives you peace. And maybe that's it. Maybe it's about the striving for peace when we don't need to strive. Rather, it's arriving, or we are at.
Mhm.
It's just an offshoot of meditation that just happens. But I think when we begin to strive for that, especially in the early days, we're not going to get there.
Right, right,
It's
definitely.
it's,
We're
it's
sort of
discipline. It's easy, Evan, as you know. It's easy, but it's disciplined,
it's
and in some ways it's hard. It's
right.
paradoxical, right?
Right, definitely. I mean, it is a practice, like a meditation
Yes,
practice. It's not one of
yes,
those, it's not like you meditate for 10 minutes and you become like the Buddha. He his journey lasted however long before he reached the stage of what he called enlightenment of,
yeah,
being. And I think we live in a very much an instant gratification society where, everything's at our fingertips, whether it be on social media. You can post something and get 100 likes, and that's a boost to your ego. And
exactly.
you can sort of get all these quick dopamine hits and all these different things. So with
Mm,
meditation, if you don't necessarily see that immediate eradication of thoughts, or like that immediate peace, it's sort of almost like, oh, I'm doing it wrong. You sort of assume that there's something wrong with
yes,
how we're doing it. Like we sort
mm,
of gain that fear that, maybe I'm just not good enough for this. I think there's a lot
yes,
of a
yes,
lot of there's a lot of like uh I think we teach people to be very un, unsure of our own abilities and not just sort of trust the process. I mean, what sort of like guidance do you say for somebody maybe in that situation of, just feeling uh, not feeling a lack of confidence in their ability to meditate and sort of
mm, mm,
be like feel that presence and just work towards that in the long run?
yeah, yeah. If I think if you're committing yourself to do the practice, then you're doing it right. And I
Mhm.
think that that's half the battle is because the fear of, like you said, that we're not good enough, or I can't do this, or that's reserved for people that have been practicing it for years and all that sort of thing, and I just can't do it. I think the mere fact that if you truly commit and just ride it out, and what could happen is this: you may not initially notice differences as you begin. And if you can just commit even 5 minutes or 10 minutes, in fact, that's what I would suggest, 5 or 10 minutes a day. And then what can happen is you might not see it, but someone might come up to you and say, you seem different. You seem more peaceful. And then it might shock you. It's like, wow, that could be working. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, to absolutely to let go initially of all expectations, because really it's like when we go to the gym, it's like walking into those first gym sessions, or and you might be overweight and you're very much out of condition, and we can't really walk out straight away with all the benefits, and we go through those peaks and troughs, and the
Right.
same goes with exactly the same with meditation. The beautiful thing is you might feel a little bit more calm. But here's the thing, and I want to bring this up too, because I was going through a couple of years back, I was doing these meditations in those float tanks, which I think you call them
Mm.
sensory deprivation tanks
Yeah.
over there. And I had some of the most beautiful, profound experiences in those tanks. But what began to happen is I began to go into those sessions expecting it to happen,
Mm,
expecting the session to be very blissful, very peaceful. And so what happened was I was let down because it wasn't giving me what I was trying to get from it. And so the reason I'm saying this is if you can throw away all expectations, just let go and the the outcome of peace to evolve at its own accord. But
mm.
just see if you just do your best to let go initially, let go of it all,
Right. And
and watch.
that's very
Yeah,
difficult. That's very the difficult like
that's
process and concept to sort of, strive for and master, because we do, like
that's
we were mentioned earlier, we do hold on to things. We do let things build up, and but I think creating expectations only does set up sort of a almost an inevitable like feeling of failure, because we expect a
yes.
certain thing. And as we know, life turns out, like I'm sure you never expected your YouTube to take off as it did. Like
No.
if you had the expectation of I'm going to be a huge YouTube star, then chances are it wouldn't, not saying it wouldn't happen, but there's only sort of a letdown that can come with that. And you sort of just allow the process to sort of naturally take place. And that's definitely a level of like authenticity, if you will. And like you can sort of uh, allow it
Mm,
as it should play out, because it's going to everybody's journey looks a lot different, right? Everybody,
yes, yes.
um, and
And in our
so
goal setting world, Evan, because that's what we're taught, is we're taught to achieve, to strive, to
right.
set goals. And of course, meditation, of course, is the absolute opposite. It's not about achieving and striving, and it's simply about being. And so we're not used to just being, right?
Right,
We're so not
definitely,
used to just being.
right.
It's almost like, well, I need to do something.
No,
So
you
yeah.
don't.
No,
You don't. And that's the thing. Like I, especially, with meditation and being and sort of taking that presence, um, I would say it's almost like a mindset and like way of life to sort of try and be actively present and not worry about, like it's nice to have long-term goals and projects and all of these different things you'd like to do, but sort of letting go of the competition, I think, in like the
Mm,
competitive mindset, I think is um, a huge thing to work towards. And with with this sort of everything that's going on in the world, if we look at the world, there's a lot of chaos, there's a lot of stress and suffering. And it's important to be like mindful about that. I myself have tried to take on the mindset of I'm just going to flow and try and respond to the world accordingly, to
mm,
and have my own inner state of peace. I mean, do you think, you know I think we're both in agreement, meditation can absolutely benefit anybody. We can
mm,
Anybody can reap these benefits of meditation. What, like in society, do you see maybe like some sort of shift beginning to take place, or we're entering maybe a new paradigm where if people become sort of more accustomed to being, like instead of competing, and we're living in hierarchies where we place people over other people and sort of just level it out to just being and
mm.
embracing one another, how can we work towards that, or what might that look like if everybody sort of began to adapt to that being just mentality?
Mm, mm. Yeah, it's certainly tough times, right?
Yeah.
It's certainly been some tough times, and I think it's really what's going on to me. Sometimes feels like it's really a reflection of almost of our collective consciousness of how we
Mm,
all are and how we are dealing with um, or how we are maybe not dealing with, I probably should say, with uh, pain and suffering. and and if we keep, so much so it's often pushed down, that's how we deal with a lot of pain and suffering, or we cover it up with, whether it be addictions, of any kind of going out and shopping or watching TV or drugs,
Mm.
alcohol, sex, gambling, whatever that may be. And I think this is an opportunity for us to begin to feel and to feel the pain and to truly feel the pain and not push it down. And then this is our hope that when we begin to do this, we begin to almost be complete.
Mm.
Where am I going with this? Let me think about this. Yeah.
And I definitely agree. It is sort of a reflection of a collective consciousness, if you will.
Yes.
There's a lot of suffering that we have ignored in the past
Yes.
throughout human history, if you will.
Yes.
So it's,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, and what's happening is it doesn't go away. That suffering and that pain can't go away. That's within us, and that has to come
mm,
out. But unfortunately, if we're not dealing with it in appropriate ways, if we're not taking ourselves into the meditation room, and that can be just going away, sitting for 10 minutes, and to say to yourself, to really allow and say to yourself, like, I'm prepared now to sit here and I'm going to feel the pain, and I'm
mm,
not going to run. I'm going
right.
to sit here. And when we can begin to do that as individuals, to feel the joy fully, to feel the pain fully, we can then begin to fix all these things that are going wrong in the external world. So I guess what I'm saying is it's up to us individually,
Mm,
one by one,
right.
to fix
Definitely.
this.
And I would 100% agree. And I think if you were to tell somebody, like be able to show somebody the difference that a person can make on their own individual level to, we talk about changing the world, and a lot of times it sounds like a pie in the sky idea, like, oh,
Yeah,
you want, but if you were to show the level of impact that one person has on all these other people and the domino effects that can create, I think it gives a real sense of empowerment, and it gives a real sense of one's own ability and finding one's own purpose. Like we talked about, you finding your purpose, and I think everybody has a unique talent and a unique purpose that they can sort of
absolutely.
contribute to that collective consciousness. And once we
Absolutely.
begin to look within ourselves, we can, our collective consciousness, I feel like, can almost begin to emulate systems that are, we will create systems that are more natural and emulate nature. And because we are nature, we're, as
Yes,
humans, we're nature,
yes, yes,
you know
yes.
and we can sort of create a more um, a society built on compassion and not leaving any people behind. And it's very difficult to know what that'll look like necessarily, just because
Mm,
we don't live in it right now. There is still a lot of suffering, and but I think it's something to work towards, especially at the individual level at first, by going and feeling that pain and sitting with it, and you
yeah,
know realizing that we are the full pain, but we are also the joy, and we are light, and we can bring so much
yeah,
good to the world. And I think that's such a powerful and empowering uh just like attitude to take on, and
mm,
idea to take on. I mean, would you say meditation is something that is brought out in you, has sort of helped you realize sort of your connection to others and the interconnectedness that exists between all of us?
mm. I think meditation has helped me to really, yeah, to dive deeper with an empathy and understanding for others, and for the suffering and the pain, and for my own, of course, first, and then
Mm,
and and also to be present with other people more so than what I had before previously. Uh, I, the gift of mindfulness, it spills over from sitting on the mat, of course, when we sit on the
mm,
mat to we catch ourselves more often in just being truly present with other people. And that's the greatest gift. And as you said, we must never underestimate that ripple effect
Right.
of what we can give to one person. You know, if we can be truly present for that one person, we don't know the profound effects that that's going to have. They might be a teacher in a class, or, you know, and then they give that to 30 people at once, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
then that does, some other child then remembers that, and that goes out, and the ripple effect is such a very, very, very powerful thing. So just this one being, the impact that we can have, as you said, on the world is can be enormous.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that is so, like I was saying, it's such an empowering,
Mm,
empowering feeling to know that you can sort of make that difference and, finding ultimately your purpose and finding your life sort of calling and sort of going on this journey of, inside of yourself and sort of this internal experience. I mean, would you
mm,
say like a big thing that I found for me with meditation is, truly living in a place of, like you mentioned, empathy and compassion
mm,
and love. And I think love is such a huge, uh, something that I try and bring into every interaction. I look at people and try and see the good and just smile. I think that makes a huge difference. Would you say love can sort of be this binding force for humanity to, you know, move, go in a different direction, something that we can sort of create something built out of love especially when we take this mindfulness approach?
mm. Perfect. I almost feel like that is my calling, to help spread love. You
Mhm.
know, when my grandfather died a few years back now, and his last words to my mum said, "Look, I love you, Dad." And he said to my mum, and these were the last words he ever spoke. Actually, he said love, and he said, "Isn't that what it's all about?"
Mm,
And my mum turned the corner, and before she even left the hospital, he'd passed on. And I feel like that those words, they resonate in my heart, and I feel like I've almost had to grab the baton, and I'm here to pass that on. I really feel like now that that's a part of my calling too, is to pass on that. And and meditation is another way to help me to develop that within myself, and not to get caught up in the ego part of things, which sometimes, we do.
right.
And get caught up in the I'm right, you're wrong, that sort of thing. And but the beautiful thing about the meditation and awareness is we become mindful, and we become more aware, and we catch ourselves out much quicker than we ever
Mm,
did
right.
before. And
Right.
so, yeah, when these sort of things, anything like this surfaces up, and it's like, okay, I step back and just I'm aware of that now. Okay,
Right.
that's coming
And
up, and I don't really need that here now. Just let that go. Yeah.
right, definitely. And our ego was sort of, it's there to protect us from a lot of, like, it's trying to protect us. Like, and it's very easy to get angry, like when we're sort of going through that conditioning, get angry at ourselves or get angry at the ego. Like you hear all the time, like, I want to kill my ego completely. And like, just, and like, it's like, it's just trying to protect us, just trying to do its job. It's there for a reason. It's a
Yeah,
defense
it's
mechanism.
exactly. It's doing what it knows. That's all. It's just doing what it knows, what it's learned
Right. Exactly.
along the way.
Uh, and I really resonated with what you're saying about, your grandfather's last words. I
Mm,
think that's incredibly powerful. And, we look at the situation with, coronavirus, for example, and everything, all of our systems that we've created and everything that sort of we thought was reality, whether it be work or the economy and all these sort of external systems, they all get shut down, right? And what's left and sort of what we're realizing, what's most important is our connections to one another and like with family and
yeah.
your friends. And I think it was the the pandemic was almost sort of a slap in the face to wake up and say, hey, like, we need to come together through love and through connection to,
Yes.
um, be these creatures of love and be these beings of love. And I really resonate with what you're saying about love being part of your calling, because I think that's a big part of my calling too, is to show people love and help people find, not only love for others but love for themselves, and sort of cultivate self-love.
Yes. Yes.
As a teacher, like, I don't see, there's not a ton of, there's so many like standards that we need to go over with students about, whether it be the mathematics standards and all these different lessons and, information that is, I guess, important, but we don't
Mm.
teach how to have love for oneself. We don't teach, how to be happy, how to find joy in everyday moments. So I think, um,
Isn't that
we
isn't
could,
that isn't that amazing, right? Like it's like it's almost expected of us that
right.
that's going to just happen. That'll take care of itself. That's not important.
Right. But
Yeah.
inevitably, does it take care of itself? For a lot of people,
No,
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 not at all. I mean,
no.
I sort of stumbled into my, I call it almost like a hero's journey, if you will, of
Yes.
this, of, taking on a spiritual practice and meditation. I just so happened to be in a situation where I got exposed to it. But,
Mhm.
most people don't unfortunately get that exposure or get that recognition of, sort
Mm.
of, it's almost like an alternative route, if you will, from the sort of mainstream, uh, I guess you could say, narrative or like
Yes. Yeah.
society.
Although it's coming up more so
Right.
now. But yeah, you're right. You're right. And it's interesting because sometimes it seems like it presents itself for people that have gone through pain,
Mm,
like through count them. For instance, my counselor saying, "Oh, Jason, you need, try meditation. It will serve you well." And now, really, if it wasn't for those times in the first instance, maybe I still wouldn't be doing it either.
right.
But it was through going through that counseling process, and yeah, so
Sort of finding it and embarking on that journey. And,
yes,
I think it goes back to that, idea of everything is sort of, uh, everything we sort of emphasize is externalized, and everything is, there's no, uh, there's a very lack of, I guess, individual awareness within our school systems and our jobs and our, it's all about sort of serving an external, uh, source, if you will, as opposed to looking internally
mm,
and,
mm,
being one with ourself, and then using that energy that we can source internally to create a positive, impact in the world. And,
mm.
I think about a lot, like, how can I sort of get other people onto the sort of meditative path? How can I get other people onto, uh, you know like, get people willing to embark on a spiritual journey? And sometimes I struggle with that, you know question, because people have to want to do it. Like, people
Yes,
have to be
yes,
willing. I mean, do you find that, sometimes, do you have that sort of same, I guess, I don't know if I want to call it an issue, but
mm,
you try and you sort of push people in that direction, and ultimately, is it up to the individual? Again, you only do
yes,
so much when you're trying to sort of be a healer in that space.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I'm blessed now to be in a position where I don't have to sort of push it all because it's
Mm,
just the work's out there now and people are finding it by the
right.
masses. But on an individual level, um, I rarely do anything or say anything. And what I find is that, I had a cleaner back in New South Wales and she was going through a bit of a rough patch. And she just come up to me and said, can you do breathing and stuff? And she said, can you just, oh, I think I might have even said to her, I said, look, I can just show you this little breathing technique, that could help you. And so we just sat down for a few moments, just a quick few moments. And then she went, wow, this does help. And it was
Mm,
just sitting there, just doing some breathing. It was a meditation in itself. And so I love those little moments where you can just, you can say, look, if someone's going through that difficult time, you can just offer have you got a moment? I'll show you a little trick. You don't even have to
Right.
use the word meditation. And in
Mm,
doing so, people then are not, their things don't go up there. Barriers don't go up or anything. They're just like, oh, okay, let's just try this. Let's see what this is
right.
about. And then that can just open doors, because then they experience it without even the term meditation, which sometimes can throw people off if they're not
Right.
ready for it, you know?
Definitely. I mean, would you say there is almost sort of a stereotype around meditation? Like there's, because I think a lot of people almost sort of view it as like a fad, if you will, because it is on the rise and sort of
Yeah.
maybe like a hippie guru. Like, I don't know. I think
Yes,
there's a lot of stereotypes that come with, meditation. Um,
absolutely. I totally agree. Totally agree. And it's almost like, even people have expected me to be a certain way, and they're just like, oh, you. Yeah. They might have just listened to one of my recordings or something, and they just expect me to be a certain way, and then they, oh, you're just like you're like a regular person. Like, oh, it's like, oh, okay.
right. What
So
else did you expect?
yeah, yeah. So it's kind of, it's weird. It's weird. I think, although because it is starting to spread out more on apps and everything now, is people are beginning to, many people are just beginning to catch glimpses of it through all these little apps and on the phones,
Right.
and oh, let's just sit and listen to this and do it. Oh, it does help, does make me feel at
Right.
peace. Yeah.
Absolutely. Definitely.
So
And
it's a beautiful thing, isn't it? Really, that it's getting out there far and wide now.
right. It's becoming much more accessible, and it's
Yes.
becoming something that is with it coming into the mainstream a bit more. You are going to have people who want to go against the mainstream and they're going to knock it, but that does mean more people are getting that sort of exposure. And
Yeah.
it's been around for thousands of years.
Right.
It's not new. Like
No,
it
no,
is
no.
long before even the constructs of our Western civilization. It's been around thousands of years. So it's
Yeah.
with that in mind, it's obviously working. It's doing something. It's people are going to feel that sort of benefit, and you know, there's so many like scientific benefits to it as well. Whether it be, I know you focus a lot on your videos with sleeping in particular, and um,
Mm,
there's all of these different health benefits regarding mental health, and
mm,
uh, but I found for sort of what I've noticed like is most efficient is sort of getting people to have that direct experience. It's almost like sort of the simple experience of meditating is better than explaining the science to people, and sort of just I think
yeah.
like giving people that direct experience is is going to sort of be the way to uh have more and more and more people meditating. And I'm
Yes.
excited to see like 20 years from now, if we sort of keep going at this pace, what sort of the world might look like. And then another 20
You're
years
right.
from
You're
now,
right.
like
Yeah.
sort of the long term ramifications of it. And I'm like working in schools. I starting to see sort of I was an assistant in a classroom where there was a teacher at the start of every class did a 5-minute meditation video. And
Beautiful.
I was in there, I was like, wow, this is amazing. And so
Beautiful.
it's starting to become this more
Yes.
of a mainstream.
That's
um
that's so good when I hear that, when it's going through the school system, and I know, yes, some are actually introducing it as a part of the curriculum. And when I
mhm,
hear that's so much joy and hope. Like, that's such a beautiful thing,
right.
because the kids are going to learn from an early age, very early age, that if that they can cope with their stress, and oh, I can do meditation. It helps me to be calm.
Mm, right,
Yeah, that's a
exactly. and
great thing.
and you can use it sort of in any situation, and sort of allow it to make it part of your regular routine. And I wake up every morning and I do some breathing and meditation. Like that's sort of my priority first thing in the morning, to sort of
Yes.
set myself for the rest of the day. And I guess having a routine like that is helpful. But even if you just take 5 minutes on the bus, or, you have a big test coming up and you're sitting there for a couple minutes and you decide to just do some deep breathing. And, just taking those 5 minutes where maybe your mind is normally going crazy, you can sort of just focus on the breath, and that's going to calm your whole body and put you into
Mm.
that relaxed state. And I think just learning that, not even, emphasizing you must meditate for X amount of time every day, but that
Yes,
I think
that's
that
the
is.
yeah, that's the gift, Evan, of the meditation, is that we can take this with us anywhere, anytime.
Mm,
Before those moments of pressure, and we can just find a few minutes just to breathe, to focus on our breathing. But I mean, the routine is great in a way, like the before bed, or when upon waking. They're great because we can connect that to the routine of getting in and out of bed.
right.
And it helps us to be, because the more we can do meditation, of course, the greater benefits. But
Mm,
upon saying that, no, you can use it anytime, anywhere. Just grab those moments, and
right.
the more we have those moments, the more that they will spill over into all areas of our lives, and we'll find ourselves just take
Mm,
almost like taking that step back, and being able to respond rather than react, to not be quickly, but just take that time to just step back and breathe,
right. And just
make better
be calm.
decisions, better choices too. Yeah.
Right. Definitely.
Yeah.
It's all encompassing. It is sort of about that presence and just being. And you know,
Yes.
a- I love the analogy of respond versus react, because
Mm.
through life we really, with reactions, it's almost sort of like a victim mindset. The world is happening to me, and I'm sort of just going to quickly react. And you know, again, I think that's what we're taught to do. That's sort of what has been emphasized through
Mm.
just generations. And it's not of fault of ourselves, or, if we're in that sort of mode of reactivity, but, learning to respond and learning
Mm.
to listen and learning to, engage in different ideas that might challenge your beliefs or your thinking. And, I think one of the big things we're, you know, having trouble with right now, especially in the United States, and I'm assuming Australia as well, is people don't really want to listen to anything that might challenge their ideologies, their worldview. And um, I think that's what causes so much division amongst people, and so much, reactivity to certain events. And I think it sort of fuels that a collective consciousness of sort of what we have been living in for generations. But when we can
Mm.
sort of take that mindful approach, two people from the opposite sides of political spectrums or ideological perspectives can come together and see the
Absolutely.
see the commonalities between them.
Absolutely. I think you've hit something really spot on there, is because, especially now, and there are different points of view about all of this, about what to do and what not to do, and what should we do and what shouldn't we do. And unfortunately, what we end up doing is personally, and you see this on social media so much, is personally attacking each other,
Hmm.
getting down to a personal level. Instead of listening to the other person, we feel like in defense mode. And again, it's the ego of, no, you're wrong, I'm right. And if only we can just take a step back and just go, let's just listen to the other person. Let's see where they're coming from. We may just learn something.
Right.
Just see where they're coming from, where deeply the beliefs are. Or um, the world would be such a much more beautiful place if we can all do that. That we don't all have to agree on the same thing, and that's
Right.
okay. That's
Right.
okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And it's people are going to have different worldviews and come from different backgrounds and different experiences. So, I think a big part of looking inward is about also expanding, your own perspective. Because when you look inward, you realize how little you sort of know, how little like you've experienced. And I always say that there's 7 billion different unique perspectives on the planet,
Exactly.
right? That's a
Yes.
lot. So, and
It sure
and
is.
and ultimately, like everybody can sort of be a teacher when we choose to sort of listen. And
Yes.
even if somebody might be on the complete opposite end of what your belief is, gaining this sort of awareness of why they feel that way and what it is that drives that belief is ultimately what's going to be able to create the resolution and create sort
Yes.
of a coming together and ultimately create peace. Because the wars and fights and all these sort of this division is just caused from that that chaos that's created
Yes.
from not listening.
That's
And
perfect. Exactly it. I think that that's it. People just want to be heard
mm,
and understood and listened to from the heart. And once we have that, you're right. The resolution, that how that can just quickly just resolve things. Oh, I've been heard, and it just drops things down instantly to that level of calm. But when
right,
people are not heard or they're not being listened to, that that rises the chaos, that rises the tension. And
right,
so
absolutely.
that listening, that mindfulness of being and of us being of service just by purely listening from the heart, that is the biggest gift we can give anyone, to truly listen.
Absolutely. So, and
Mm,
and giving them our presence and
yes.
openness. And the heart opening process is one that's very, it can be very difficult, and can be, it requires a lot of vulnerability, and it requires a willingness to look at, like we talked about, all your conditioning, and look and understand sort of our limited perspective. But
Mm,
with it, it brings love. With it, it brings peace. With it, it brings connection and unity. And I think that's what we so desperately are all
mm,
striving for, even with when we if we think we seek chaos, and we think we seek destruction and division. I think it stems from that opposite of not feeling heard. Yeah, like you said, not feeling heard, and
yes,
sort
yes.
of a longing for connection, a longing for love in
Mm,
amongst people. And with everything so externalized, I think, like whether it be through looking for validation on social media, or seeking gratification through consuming, I think that's all just a way to uh, make up for not feeling that connection and not getting that connection. We
mhm.
externalize it because we don't have the validation to be our authentic selves, if you will, and pursue our purpose authentically.
Yeah, I think that you hit on something there with the social media, and I think that many people are using the social media as a way of to be heard and to be validated, and maybe for some that's all they have,
Mm,
and that can be really difficult because if they don't get that on there, and or if they get torn down, um, that can produce a lot of more pain.
right. Absolutely. And it can sort of, it almost destructs the ego, if you will, that or the boundaries you've created around yourself, and sort of,
Yeah.
and I myself have had to sort of shift my mindset on social media from a place of seeking approval to sort of just being authentic in my expression. And sort of, because I think social media is a fantastic tool for
Mhm.
connectivity, a fantastic tool. Like, I mean, in the internet, here we are talking to each other across the world. It's a beautiful gift.
Absolutely.
Um, but it can also be a tool for destruction when we go in with that wrong mindset, and really using it to um, almost distract us from our own internal process, and sort of our own inward perspective. But when you can use it as a mode of authentic expression, and trying to spread, positivity and love, and
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's like what you do with YouTube and your videos, and just throwing it out there and letting people find it. That's a beautiful use of the technology we have today, and it's such a
Yeah,
perfect example of how these can be tools for good. And
exactly.
I have some people in my family who are anti-technology. They see the chaos that's in the world and they're like, oh my gosh, the internet is causing all of this. And I'm like, you're right, but we also, let's try and look at the good. So
Yes, yes. I
I think
think the key word you said there, Evan, is the internet is a tool,
yeah.
and it's a tool that we can, it's like you have a hammer and you can build a house with it, or you can hit someone over the head with it and kill them, in pretty
Right.
simple terms. And that's what the internet, we can use it for the good and for the benefit of mankind, or we can use it to also to just destroy ourselves. And so how we use that tool.
Hmm. Right.
Yeah.
Sort of, you know, based on a lot of the things we've talked about, what do you sort of see, moving forward with, because I think we've talked about how a lot more people are sort of becoming, looking inward and taking on mindfulness and sort of
Mm.
taking that inward approach. Like, what do you see, moving forward in terms of, where we go as a society and sort of the direction we're heading in? I mean, I personally, I think there might be a little bit more. We might go down a little further of the chaos route, just because there's a lot of collective, um, a,
Mm.
a lot of collective things coming out of the shadows that are, we're being exposed to more and more pain, and we're sort of,
Mm.
I don't know. I think there's a lot more we might have to go through, but I'm a big believer, through darkness comes light, right? And so, I mean, what sort of, uh, direction do you think we might be moving in? And how can people go into the direction of the society with that sort of, mindset to spread love and
Mm.
spread
Mm.
positivity?
I think you're right there upon saying that, I sense that we have a little more darkness to come. Um, However, with that being said, like you said too, out of that darkness, there's always the light there, and then it will rise again. And I think the beauty of what's going on is that more and more people are uh, awakening to the importance of um, meditation, for instance. It's one of them all, and just living a more peaceful, productive life of compassion and empathy. I really think that there it's coming out more from a younger age, and it's the youth really. They're going to be making they're going through the changes, and they're going to be making changes. And in a way, thank goodness, because I think some of the people in charge above,
Mm.
I think need to go. Some of them, but seriously,
Yeah.
we need this whole fresh new approach, and I think it's coming through. I really do. So, and that's why it's really important for us to give as much as we can to our youth, because they're the ones. They're going to they're going to make major changes to this world, and I think we're heading towards. I like to think that we're heading towards a beautiful place, a really beautiful, like a blooming, if you like, of
Mm.
a fresh lotus flower, like a just this, and I think that's coming. But I sense that there has to be a little more darkness that we need to go through, and
Mm.
pain. But out of that is going to come much more beauty.
Absolutely. And I
Mm.
I definitely agree. And it's, I see sort of the inward perspective more people, I'm only, what, 24, so people my age are taking,
There
and
you
the
go.
youth and
Yes.
seeing in schools, and sort of that mindfulness approach is something that's, you know I think going to be more prevalent in the generations to come. And we can only hope and do our individual part to sort of create this beauty and create
Yes.
this change that, we want to see in the world. And, like we said earlier, everybody has that ability to make that unique change and that unique impact. And, you know, I always only, I always hope to reach enough people to sort of, to fulfill my own purpose of that. And
Yes.
I think we're both in that same boat of where we want to spread as much love and as much,
Yeah, you're doing. I'd like to just take this opportunity just to commend you and say thank you for the work you're doing, and especially at such a young age, like at 24, like that really makes my heart sing because, yeah. So I really commend you. I just
uh,
commend you so much.
that's greatly appreciated. And, I'd
Yeah,
say the same for your work as well, because it does make truly an impact, meditation, and, your meditations in particular as well. There were points of my life where I was in a very dark place and, battling mental health. And,
yeah,
I would say a mindfulness approach and like that perspective has been what's, I would say turned my life around and given me the the chance to move forward and find my own calling and my purpose.
beautiful,
And, it's your work that's been a big part of that. And,
wonderful. Thank you.
and the numbers, the numbers don't lie in the sense that I'm one of those 1.83 million people who have that sort of same, story. So, the work that you do it's unbelievable. It's
Thank,
incredible. And I think,
thank you, Evan.
something as simple as, leading a guided meditation makes the world of a difference. And so,
Yeah.
you know, thank you for your light and shining it. It's greatly appreciated.
Yeah. Thank you. You're most welcome. You're most welcome.
Absolutely. So with that, I mean, we're at about an hour. We've hit on a lot of great talking points. So where is there any sort of, final thoughts you wanted to give people listening, and, where can they go to, engage with your work and, find you?
Yeah. Well, basically, I'll be putting out be doing a course soon, actually. First of all, number one, you can go to YouTube and all my work, there's masses of my work, and it's for free. It's no charge. And if you want to go deeper, you can sign up for my weekly newsletter, and you can also get a download. I've got a free MP3 sleep meditation. And if you just go to www.jasonstephenson.net, and that's Stephenson with a PH. If you go there or any social media platform, you can just see my work all over the place there. I think that's it. And I'm about to study again, and I'm so much looking forward to that. I'm doing applied Buddhism
Awesome.
back at Nantien Temple, where I did that mindfulness retreat.
Oh, wow.
So it's the university section now, they built onto it. And so I'm very excited to continue my learning and my studies. And yeah, that's coming up in next month.
Awesome. Coming full circle in a way, right?
It is. Yes, it is.
That's awesome. So I'll go ahead and I'll put all of your the links in the episode description so people can just scroll down and click it if they're feeling a little lazy and they don't want to go surfing. It's right there.
Thanks, mate.
Of course. So awesome, Jason. Thanks again for coming on the podcast. I really enjoyed talking with you and getting to know you and having you on here. So
thank you very much, Evan. It was a real pleasure to speak with you and to meet you.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's plan on it again soon.
Yes,
we'll reconvene when we're going through a little bit more of the darkness and we need some more words of positivity and inspiration.
Or maybe to celebrate the light coming, the lotus flower opening too. That would be wonderful.
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's definitely plan on it. All right.
Many blessings, mate.
All right. And to you as well. I'm pretty quick with my not meditations, podcasts in terms of getting them out there. So my goal is to have it out sometime this week or next week at the latest. So okay. I'll shoot you the link and I'll create some little artwork for it. That'll be the
beautiful
artwork. So, and yeah, I'll email that over to you